We are at the edge of the Harriet Webster Pier, right before Maritime Gloucester, enjoying the 38th Gloucester Schooner Festival. I am your host for Cape Ann today, Kory Curcuru, alongside, as always, Heather Atwood.
Hi, Kory.
How you doing, Heather?
I'm great. It's such a gorgeous day here.
We lucked out again, huh?
Yeah, was it 2 years ago?
Yeah, 3 years ago, yeah.
Yeah, maybe 3, right. Anyway, it's beautiful here, and we know the schooners are out there, and we have some wonderful guests who are going to tell us all about this festival.
Yeah, we're going to get everything, the A to Z on everything Schooner Festival. So we're super excited to get the show going for you. Right off the bat, let's introduce our first guest. You're familiar with, with one of them. Daisy Nell is the chair of the Gloucester Schooner Festival, and Mike Costello is one of the founders of Gloucester Schooner Festival, and they're joining us this morning. How are you both?
Fine. Well, actually, Mike was the original chair. I was the original pain in the neck.
So I have a question right off the bat, because the last time we talked to you, Daisy, you said when there are 2 boats in the water, there's a race.
Of course.
I love that line. So I think there was a race last night, starting off the whole event.
There was. Everybody who was in the Schooner Challenge last night wondered if it was actually a race, because the Schooner Challenge is sort of a race to nowhere, but everybody goes, everybody has fun, and it's a chance for some of the local schooners and some of the visiting schooners to get a little bit out of their system, go out there and drop an anchor out by the greasy pole, and then have fun going around a couple of buoys.
Yeah.
But it's just clean dumb fun.
Was there a winner?
Everybody who was in it said they were the winner. So it's like that.
That's nice, yeah.
So for folks on the outside looking in, Daisy, what is Gloucester Schooner Festival and how did it come about? And then Michael will ask you a bit about the backstory and how what the components go into putting this all together.
Well, the Gloucester Schooner Festival is an annual gathering of schooners. That's boats with a schooner rig. You have Adventure right here in the background. You can see 2 masts. Most of the schooners here are 2-masted schooners. They did make them with more masts, but just to be concise, a schooner has 2 masts, and the fishing schooner is the icon of Gloucester. You see it all over on pieces of paper and on the top of City Hall and everywhere you can think of, because fishing under sail was usually done by a schooner rig. A lot of them were built in my hometown of Essex. And so the Schooner Festival is a way to commemorate the fishing schooners of old. In the 1920s and 30s, the fishing schooners raced against each other, not just to race each other back to port here in Gloucester, which they did because they wanted to be the first one back in. The one with the fastest boat gets the best price for the fish. So when they were racing against each other back to port, a friendly competition, they always were careful to point out, just a friendly competition. Well, pretty soon boats started being built to be a little less friendly competition, and they were bringing in at that point yacht designers who were helping them be just a little faster, but they were still fast and able, as the old historians would call them, to be able to catch fish and then bring them back safely but quickly. And it wasn't long before there was a little competition between Nova Scotia and Lunenburg, in particular Nova Scotia and Gloucester. So when those boats stopped racing around 1938, things were changing. But in 1985, there was the beginnings of some noises about let's have some schooners in Gloucester that charter. I happen to be one of them, on a schooner called Morning Star. And a race occurred that year between the American Schooner Association schooners that belonged to that association and Nova Scotia Schooner Association. They came here. Other boats, other schooners gathered here. We had a race. We had on my boat, Morning Star, we had an artist on board who drew an oil painting that afternoon of the winning boat.
That's impressive.
It was very impressive.
That's a race too.
Yes, that was. He was very willing, and he painted a portrait of the schooner Fortune, which was from Nova Scotia. And the following year, Mike, you should check in right now and talk about how excited you were to have this happen again when you were the director of the Chamber of Commerce. But
well, it was sort of serendipitous that the thing started. I mean, it just out of the blue. The mayor at the time, Dick Silva, got a request from the American Schooner Association. Would we host their rendezvous, which they did, I think, about every 3 or 4 years. And Dick called me and said, would you be willing to put it together? And I said, that's fine, sure. And it was in June. And the response was absolutely fantastic. And these were primarily little guys, but it evoked such emotion and such feeling that we got a small committee together, and people said, well, why don't we put our own festival together, but not in June. Let's do it on the Labor Day weekend, because I've forgotten which schooner it was. It may have been Pilot.
Pilot was here, yeah.
And they were available on the Labor Day weekend. So I said, okay, we'll do it on the Labor Day weekend, and the rest is history.
What was happening with these schooners between the years of 1938 and 1985?
Well, a lot of them had been continuing, not adventure fished until 1953. So some of them had given up fishing. Some of them had been turned into passenger schooners, such as the ones that were working out of Camden, Maine. Jim Sharp, for example, and others had schooners there that were taking passengers out. They called them windjammers, which was a great name for boats that were only using the wind. But there were others that had started to pay attention to the interest in what we now call tall ships around the bicentennial in 1976. And at that point there was the famous tall ship parade in New York Harbor. And from then a lot of these vessels turned into school sailing ships where they had educational programs, some short term, but some much longer, like a semester at sea. And there were programs such as SEA down in out of Woods Hole that took kids out. The Regina Maris took kids out. They were based here in Gloucester for a whole semester with the 5 colleges in Massachusetts that were part of that program. So they were busy remembering and finding people who remembered how to do the work on these ships. A lot of them had moved on or died, and so this was being rejuvenated. And it wasn't long before there were plenty of programs out there for kids who wanted to go to sea, or their parents wanted them to go to sea, and keep track of these old vessels. Some of them now are in 100 years. 100 years old or more. Adventure is almost 100 years old. The schooner Roseway, who's here this weekend, built in 1925. It's not long before these vessels are all going to be very senior citizens.
Right. So, Mike, 38 years now, the festival's been running. How has it evolved over the better part of 4 decades?
There have been some changes. In the early years, I don't know if you remember, we had 2 days of racing, Saturday and Sunday. And the big boats were on Sunday, but on Saturday we had all those other various classes that I can't even tell you. What were they?
Well, as soon as the Friendship Sloop Society heard we were having a schooner festival, they said, you can't have a schooner festival without Friendship Sloops. And Mike, bless his heart, thought, that sounds like a really good idea. What could possibly be the difference between a sloop and a schooner? So
my question exactly.
Well, it has to do with...
I'm not answering that question.
It has to do with masts. The sloop only has 1 mast.
Okay.
And but you know, they are the traditional, beautiful boats, and they had their own society at that point. So you didn't just invite one; the whole fleet came. And the catboat people said, "Well, you can't have Friendship Sloops here without catboats." And Mike was a goner. He said, "Okay, I guess you have to come if they're coming." And then the next thing you know, the PHRF boat said, "We need to come." So that turned into a 2-day affair. And Sunday was reserved, though, for the schooners.
Oh, there she is.
There goes.
Yeah.
That's a schooner adventure getting ready to launch.
Yeah, there she blows.
Yep.
So that's really how it evolved into a bigger event. And we really tried over that first period of time to make sure that the festival could be brought from the waterfront up to Main Street, because we wanted people who were not on the waterfront or knew about this kind of a vessel to start connecting with their own history. Here in Gloucester, there's so much cultural history, and fishermen, families who are lost at sea, who have family members who fished on these vessels, to have a chance to be part of the celebration. So we brought more and more of it into the mainstream, and we really were working hard in raising the funds to do this, to make sure that there was something for the whole community and not something that was just for people on the water. And what I used to say was guys standing around talking about their boats. It was important that people understood that this was a community event. And now you can see with what goes on here today with Maritime Heritage Day and the lighted boat parade and all the things that we do. it's a far cry from the first year when we had a so-called parade. It went, boats went past the Coast Guard station and waved. And that was it.
Yeah, and we do want to point out to the importance of Maritime Gloucester's involvement with this event. And the Schooner Festival Committee, you raise all the funds for this event, and it's not like and the vessels aren't getting paid.
No, we don't pay them to come,
Right.
but we give them a good time. They have a chance to game with each other, and it's a nice community of friendship that's renewed every year. Sometimes new people come, people who we can't wait to embrace, or new owners for an older schooner. And it's a really wonderful thing for people to share at the boat level, at the community level. People tell me all year how this is their favorite weekend.
Wow.
They can't wait for Labor Day, which usually with the summer people don't want Labor Day to come.
Right.
Because it means summer curtain is drawing, and it's time to move on to pumpkin spice coffee.
Yeah.
From my perspective at the chamber, it was perfect because we were at that point really trying to come up with ideas on how to extend the season. And so to have something on the Labor Day weekend, which when I first got to Gloucester, it was like there's no business on Labor Day weekend. Restaurants didn't open all that often. Inns were not full. It was mainly getting the kids back to school, and people had other things to do. Now it's probably the biggest weekend of the entire year. It's evolved into one of the major events.
Yeah, it's beautiful how it couches the summertime season between St. Peter's Fiesta and the Gloucester Schooner Festival. It's absolutely gorgeous. Okay, so for those, once again...
Can we hear some highlights of ships?
Of course.
Yeah, okay. So just tell us, you don't have to go through the whole list, but what are some of the schooners that people should be looking for and saying, oh, Daisy and Mike mentioned that one, that's a beauty?
Well, we have the oldest in the Roseway, the schooner Roseway. The newest is built in 2014. That's a replica of the Essex-built schooner Columbia, and so that it spans that, and not to mention the fact that is coming all the way from Panama City, Florida, to be part of this celebration. And they are what we say drop dead gorgeous. But so is the oldest schooners in the fleet, Adventure, Roseway, the schooner Malabar 2, which is here in the harbor now. They came one day early, and it's terrific. They're going to be 100. They are 100 today.
Really?
Yeah, that's an Alden schooner.
Birthday.
And if you ever want to rent a good movie on a winter night, rent Message in a Bottle. It stars the schooner Malabar 2, an Alden schooner.
And then there's the American Eagle, which is a transformed Gloucester fishing vessel. It was a trawler and got converted into a schooner from Maine. And I think they have been here almost every year.
Yeah, they have a new owner
The
now.
longest record.
The owner is a Gloucester guy who grew up here. His family owns what used to be Montgomery's boatyard. And Tyler King now is the owner after years and years of John Foss. In fact, John Foss will be on board American Eagle this year because this is such a great weekend for him and his guests. So that was originally the Andrew and Rosalie. You can see a mural on the side of the bank. A great vessel, a great perennial winner.
Yes.
And When and If is coming. That's the schooner that was built for General George Patton. When and If I come home from the war. And,
amazing.
There are plenty of people who come to the Boulevard every year and ask us, or tell us, they knew this person, they knew that person. My grandfather was on board the Tebow, and you're not pronouncing it right. It's not Tebow, it's Tybo. That's the most often made comment about how to pronounce the Tebow and where's the bathroom.
But in answer to your question, the vessels that really stand out, not to diminish Daisy's boat, which is a teeny little thing.
Oh, wow.
Not to diminish.
The big schooners are the
44
vessels
feet.
that people really look for.
Oh yeah.
They're 4 or 5 or 6 really
The Columbia.
90 to
Roseway.
125 feet vessels. Those are the ones that dominate the
Oh, the
landscape.
Frissa is a brigantine. She's here coming up from Fairhaven, Northeast Maritime Consortium. They're coming today. Beautiful, square rigged on the main, on the foremast, and gaff rigged on the main. If you're taking notes, she's white. She's all white and white sails. A real standout. She'll be over here at I4C2 I try to tell people where they're going to put their boat, and I tell them to go to I4C2. They think I'm saying R2D2.
Exactly, yeah.
But anyway, that's a real standout. She's absolutely gorgeous. There are others. There's a schooner called Narwhal who's coming, which is, just breathtaking when you see these boats. Some of them, when you think of the work that goes into them, you know that we're all crazy, right? Our boat was launched in 1982, and it's taken since then to get the varnish right.
Well, that was my thought too. Is how is the culture of schooners like surviving with just it's older. It's probably people. It's getting more and more specialized because it's distancing itself farther and farther from when it was a working.
The good news is that people like Harold Burnham are still building them.
Yeah.
I mean, the schooners that are in this festival now, Louis H. Story, Isabella, Ardell, Thomas Landon, all built by a guy who's not that much
Right
older
there.
than my son.
He's coming up sit next, yeah.
And you know, so it's a vibrant thing. The point I always make on the Boulevard is that the schooner rig, as a rig, as I was explaining earlier, it's certainly not like a square rigger, which mostly go downwind. This is a fore and aft vessel. It's got a variety of options for sails. It's a fun vessel, and it's still viable because people are still making it. And as a passenger schooner, like the Landon and the Ardell, and soon to be the Sylvina Beale Isabella, which is here on the railways, they'll be out working again, adventure. This is a viable thing. People, in the 80s, people started going out on whale watching boats as the first time they were able to get on board a vessel that wasn't fishing. They could see our harbor, they could see out here to go out to sea. It's a little bit of what that's like, and that's exactly how it is now with schooners. They can see us working these boats with block and tackle. It's all right there. Some of the same exact tools that were used to build Roseway are being used to build boats that Harold Burnham builds today. He's 11th generation, and his son is now building them, so 12 generations.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah.
Phenomenal. Okay, Mike, if people want to learn more about Gloucester Schooner Festival, how can they go about doing that?
I guess our website is the number one place, right?
It is. It's maritimegloucester.org. Look for the bar that says donate. No, look for the bar that says schooners. And have at it. There's everything you need to know there. This year we really went full tech, and we have our program available by QR code.
Oh.
Yeah, so
high
I
tech.
know,
Right on Mike's alley.
So painful.
Well, Daisy, Nell, Mike Costello, we appreciate your time and your efforts in helping organize the Gloucester Schooner Festival. It's been great chatting with you, and we're looking forward to having a great weekend. So
it would be great.
Yeah.
Thank you very
Yeah,
much.
look for the live broadcast from the Schooner Parade from Good Morning Gloucester.
beautiful.
Yeah, so don't forget to smile.
There you go. Okay, thanks
Thanks
again.
a lot so
Daisy, I'm
much.
sure we'll have you on for our next show, too.
Yeah,
You've been on every show
Whatever
this
we
year
talk
with us.
about, we
Thank
want
you
you
very
there.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Hey guys, thanks.
Daisy Nell and Mike Costello joining us here as we are live from the Ed of Harriet Webster Pier, enjoying the 38th Gloucester Schooner Festival.
Interested in a sponsorship? Email sponsor@1623studios.org to learn more.